It is noon. It is start for our next session to begin. This just a reminder, this session is recorded. All right, and I would like to welcome you. Hello and welcome. My name is Katja Schröder. I'm the moderator for the session today. I'm a PhD student at Troy University, and I am so thrilled to welcome you to the session about Bichronous learning in the general education classroom, assessing student achievement and satisfaction in an online general education history course. We have two terrific presenters who did some research about it, Dr. Matthew Laubacher and Professor Holly Heatley. Welcome and thank you for presenting today. Before we begin, I also would like to thank Marcy Sherlock, who's our technical coordinator for this session and the entire program, and she's from Troy University. So we are so thankful for this support. So welcome everyone, and I turn over the floor to Dr. Laubacher and Professor Heatley.
Hi everyone, thank you so much, Katja. And as she mentioned, our presentation is on Bichronous learning in the general education classroom. My name is Matt Laubacher, and I'm going to pass over to Holly Heatley to get us started.
Okay, next please. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. I woke up this morning with an allergy thing, so I'll just apologize now for any coughing, sniffing, sneezing, any of that. Okay, so to get us started, as many of you know, many online institutions in recent years have used an asynchronous course design. So there are a number of benefits from this approach, in that it draws on the expertise of subject matter experts, allows for consistency in curriculum and assessment. In this system, faculty generally act as facilitators in the class. They're teaching from a standard syllabus and essentially aiding students in understanding the material through interaction on the discussion boards, announcements, and paper feedback, but they have very few opportunities to actually interact with students or create their own curriculum design, that sort of thing. Recent research by Florence Martin, Chayata Virana, and I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that, and Jackson Wilson, amongst others, have proposed incorporating synchronous elements into the asynchronous courses. In this approach, which Martin has called Bichronous, yeah, hard for me to say, online learning, instructors are able to incorporate synchronous elements into the asynchronous classroom. Okay, so this provides students with an opportunity to engage with and interact with their faculty, as well as their fellow students, and learn from the specific instructor. And it also gives faculty additional freedom to create content, to share their point of view, and that sort of thing. So an important point here is that synchronous elements need to be consistent and persistent throughout the course, with instructors most commonly incorporating synchronous elements on a weekly basis. In essence, bisynchronous online learning incorporates the strengths of both asynchronous and synchronous online learning systems, while working to minimize the weaknesses of both. So our study today that we will present draws on the previous research by examining the impact of bisynchronous learning in a general education history course offered at the University of Arizona Global Campus, UAGC, over a 6-month period in the 2023-2024 academic year. We have analyzed student performance throughout these courses, and in comparison to the asynchronous courses, which acted as a control group. Next, please. There we go. So courses at UAGC are designed around the asynchronous masterclass model. They use an accelerated 5-week course term during which students take only one class. The course design is basically a mix of discussion boards, quizzes, interactive learning activities, and written assignments, although within each course, that mix may be different. So here at UAGC, instructors are generally responsible for interacting with students on the discussion boards, grading student work and providing feedback, posting announcements, and answering student questions through email. In 2022, UAGC's School of General Studies, which oversees most of the general education courses, began incorporating live learning sessions into many of its courses. So generally the way that these were done is that it focused on one distinct topic aligned with the course. So sort of a one-time seminar for the course, and may be described as course-based live learning. So this approach is very effective in skills-based, skills-building courses and those with high enrollment numbers. But in content-driven classes such as History 206, it is less effective, largely because it's difficult to find just one issue or one topic to focus that seminar on. So for this study, general education history faculty at UAGC selected an approach that incorporated weekly instructor-led live learning sessions, you might call them lectures, into History 206 in order to evaluate the effectiveness of the Bichronous approach within the UAGC model. It's your turn, Matt.
So the central goal of this study was to evaluate this bichronicity or bichronous learning within UAGC context with regard to student performance and internal performance metrics, as well as to evaluate student satisfaction with these opportunities. To do so, we sought to develop a three-pronged study that compared student success metrics between bichronous sections, that is that incorporated a weekly meeting, lecture, seminar, whatever you want to call it, with those of asynchronous courses, compared student success metrics within Bichronous courses between students that had attended live learning sessions and those that had not, and evaluated student satisfaction of weekly live learning sessions. Navigating between screens here. To meet these goals, we examined the feasibility and impact of incorporating these sessions within the UAGC courses. The goal of these was to increase student-faculty engagement, to review student assignments, and to reinforce research requirements and approaches, proactively provide answers to common questions, and to introduce students to weekly topics. These sessions were roughly an hour in length and offered early in the learning week so students could apply the week's learning to their weekly activities. Faculty members involved in the study had the flexibility to cover the material and set their preferred session time so long as they were offered early in the week and were in the evening across U.S. time zones. Sessions were offered via Zoom and recorded so that non-attending students had a chance to review. The incorporation of these synchronous weekly elements into experimental sections thus reshaped an asynchronous course into a bichronous one. Okay, students that were able to attend the live learning session received credit for a small weekly assignment worth 1% of their final grade. That was a time balancing requirement that we had internally. Faculty members were responsible for recording recording student attendance at live learning sessions, as well as to record scores on written assignments in weeks 2, 3, and 5 of the course, as well as the student's final grade. Participating faculty members were also responsible for sending students the student satisfaction survey, which the goal of which was to collect student satisfaction data and to gather comprehensive student feedback on their experiences. Over a period of 6 months, we offered 21 sections of Bichronous courses, which were collectively taught by 2 full-time faculty members, Holly and myself, as well as 5 part-time faculty members. Student success data was collated and compared to 45 asynchronous sections of the course, which acted as a control group over that same 6-month period, thus controlling for time variations in the calendar and stuff like that. The primary researchers, that is us, were able to partner with UAGC's Office of Institutional Effectiveness, which was amazing, in order to analyze the results of this experiment, which allowed targeted significance testing on student success metrics across different student populations. So within the Bichronous experimental sections, The effectiveness of live learning sessions were analyzed by us by examining student performance on the key assignments that I mentioned with respect to the number of live learning sessions attended. So if they attended 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Significance testing was completed via an ANOVA, and we also examined the impact of students attending at least one session on different student success metrics. Sort of second level of analysis was completed with the assistance of the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, which examined student success metrics across different potentially at-risk populations. The student success metrics that we selected to evaluate were course GPA, course completion rate, and course progression rate. And the different student populations were for those with generational status, so first generation students, those with plus or minus 30 transfer credits. We are a transfer credit heavy institution, so the institution has set 30 transfer credits as its sort of delineating factor and as an at-risk population. Students who had previously failed a course and students who had previously dropped a course. So that's when we looked internally within Bichronous sections. When we're comparing with the asynchronous sessions, that is the control and experimental group, we looked at the same metrics, GPA, course progression, course completion, with regards to sort of both the entire population, with regards to student success prior to entering History 206, with regards to GPA, generational status, and then transfer credit. And these were all tested by significance with a two-tailed t-test. And with a study of this size, we obviously had a lot of results, and Holly's going to discuss some of them, or all of them, in the next couple slides.
Okay, so looking here at the results. So we compiled data from each of the Bichronous sections, and we found that roughly 2 in 5 students within the experimental sections attended at least one weekly live learning session, with roughly 1/4 of students attending at least 3 sessions and only 8% of students attending all 5 sessions. There was also a significant amount of variance across the sections with regard to student attendance, with some sections averaging around 2 students a week and other sections around 12. So when we look at this, the likely reasons for this variance is that whether students were available for live sessions in the first place, the time the faculty members scheduled the live session for, and if that time fit into students' schedule, and sometimes even if students had previously set up a Zoom count with the university. So in regard to student performance, within the Bichronous sections, the class average for student assignments for each of the weekly assignments was roughly a mid-C, as you guys can see here. Students who did not attend any of the weekly sections had grades that were roughly half a grade lower than average on each of the assignments, and that contributed to a lower, roughly half a grade lower than average on each, on their GPA, their course GPA, their final grade. Conversely, students who attended at least one weekly session averaged half a grade higher than average on the 3 assignments, and a full grade higher than students who did not attend any sessions. So essentially we can see that the live sessions had a positive effect going forward, and that these gains were seen in course GPA or their final grade. Students who attended at least 2 sessions maintained these gains. However, students who attended at least 3 sessions saw even greater gains on the week 3 and week 5 assignments, especially in comparison to students who did not attend any sessions. So we can see a very positive movement based on student attendance of these sessions. So these results were analyzed statistically using a ANOVA test followed by the Tukey post hoc testing. So this analysis shows that gains associated with live learning attendance on the on the week 2 scores were not significant. However, the analysis demonstrated that the students that attended at least 3 live learning sessions had statistically significant higher performance on the week 3 and week 5 papers when compared to students who did not. Okay, so you can see here the statistical significant scores here, or the P scores, and see how these turned out. I won't go over all of them. Okay, next, please. So the second level of analysis within the Bichronous scores, or the experimental sections, looked at the impact of attending at least 1 live learning session on student success metrics. This includes course GPA, course completion rate, and course progression rate. So it was observed that students who attended at least 1 live learning session had higher grades, course completion, and course progression rates than students who did not. However, these results were not statistically significant. These gains in student success metrics were also observed when evaluating student performance by generational status. However, these gains were also not statistically significant in nature, with p-values ranging from 0.38 to 0.9. Similarly, among students with fewer than 30 transfer credits, we observed non-statistically significant improvements across tested course success metrics. This trend continued for students who entered the university with greater than 30 credits. So again, here we can see generally positive movements, but not statistically significant. Okay, next, please. Oh, sorry. Sorry. More encouraging results were observed when examining students who had been identified by the number of previous course drops. The impact of students attending live lessons when examined by previous course drops approached positive significance with p-values under 0.15. Amongst students who had not previously dropped a course, this p-value for course completion rate was less than 0.05, but was still above the Bonferroni correction of 0.025, meaning that the improvement that we see was still great, but also not statistically significant. So here again, we can see that similar improvements were observed when dividing the course population into cadres based upon previous course failures. So students had previously failed a course and attended at least 1 live learning session, completed the course at 15% a higher rate, and progressed at nearly 20% higher rate. So when analyzed statistically, these gains were important, but also not statistically significant. It was found that seminar or live lesson attendance led to statistically significant gains in course GPA among students who had previously failed a class, as well as students who had not previously failed a class. So here we're finally seeing some statistical significance when we look at the difference between students who failed a course and those who had not. Sorry. So comparison of control and experimental sections. So obviously this is the main thing we want to do here is compare the control and the experimental sections. And the study showed that student performance across the full population of each group with regard to previous student success measured by GPA and to generational status and by transfer credits. Of the 1,571 students who enrolled in History 206 over the 6-month study period, 37.8% of students were enrolled in the experimental sections, while the remaining 62.2% of students were enrolled in the control sections. So students in the experimental sections averaged slightly higher course completion and progression rate, as well as course GPA, than those students within the control group. However, these were also found not to be statistically significant. Gains in student performance were observed when comparing student performance across the control and experimental group delineated by group student GPA when entering the course. However, these gains from control to experimental group were also non-significant in nature, although the improvement made by students who entering the class with a 4.0 GPA approached significance. So here we can see non-significant gains were also found when examining the difference between experimental sections and the control group sections with regard to transfer credit. Within the experimental courses, students with less than 30 transfer credits completed the course at a 3% higher rate, even as course progression rates and course GPAs remained constant. So this trend continued. I know it's surprising, isn't it? This trend continued when examining the control and experimental groups with regard to generational status. Though gains in course completion rate for first-generation students approached significance, but did not actually reach statistical significance. Next, yeah. Okay, so finally, the student satisfaction survey results. So of the 551 students who were in the experimental sections, roughly 80 of those opted to fill in the student satisfaction survey, and that is approximately a response rate of 15%. The students who opted into the survey sections felt strongly that the opportunity provided by the weekly live learning sessions contributed to their education, provided them with opportunities to connect with peers, to interact with faculty, to get help on assignments, and to better understand the course concepts and content. Survey participants also felt strongly that the best way to experience material covered within the live learning session was through a continued use of live learning sessions weekly. Coming up here, you can see that the green is far away the winner here. The red as a close second, it would be recorded live learning sessions or video tutorials. So one thing to note here is that there's a strong possibility of for selection bias, in that it may be likely that the students who preferred the live learning sessions, who really liked them, opted into the survey, while those who didn't prefer them did not. And also you'll notice a 14.5% response rate is relatively low for student satisfaction surveys. So that is another issue to consider here. Okay, Matt.
All right, so in general, the results that Holly's discussed mirror previous research that examined the impact of bichronous learning for online students in the 21st century, which have broadly found that bichronicity has led to increased student performance and increased student success metrics. This study looks specifically at student performance on 3 written assignments in weeks 2, 3, and 5 of the course. Within the experimental sections of the study, it was found that attendance at 3 or more live learning sessions had a significantly positive impact on student performance on week 3 and 5 papers when compared to students that had not attended any sessions. However, only 23.4% of students enrolled within these sections went to at least 3 sessions. It's theorized, therefore, that increasing the number of students that attend these sessions, at least 3 sessions, will lead to greater student success. The voluntary nature of student attendance within the study offers challenges and opportunities, some of which are pointed out in the chat. Given the UAGC's student body, which includes working adult students across the United States, as well as those stationed overseas, it's likely we're never going to get 100% attendance at any session, just because of time zone and workload and stuff of that nature. Self-selection, which again was pointed out in the chat, can't be ruled out when examining the connection between course completion and course progression for those students that attended bichronous sections. The possibility remains that those students who are more motivated to do well and would have had higher course completion and course progression anyway, also took advantage of live learning sessions as part of an educational approach which had previously been successful. It'd be interesting to examine the student attendance of live learning with respect to pre-course GPA in order to evaluate this in a follow-up study. This is especially important as this research has demonstrated the importance of live learning attendance on students that have previously struggled, such as students that have previously dropped or failed a course. For example, statistically significant gains were seen in this research experiment for students that had failed a course and then participated in a live learning session. The gains observed by students that had dropped a course and then attended a live learning session, a section that had live learning in it, there were gains. They were non-significant in nature, however, but they approached significance. Unfortunately, out of the 25% of the students who took a Bichronous class and had previously failed a course, only 20% of those students, so 5% of overall students, attended weekly live learning sessions. Similar numbers were observed among students that had previously dropped a course. Struggling students may have issues with time management, enough time to balance school as an adult student, and may have deficits in other study skills. Live learning that cover course material, assignments, and university resources can therefore help some of these deficiencies that these students have with regards to course preparation, meaning that they are precisely the students who would find live learning sessions and the support provided helpful. Future studies would likely need to proactively develop strategies to target these students and attempt to engage them within the live learning schema. However, given the voluntary nature of attendance of live learning sessions within the study, reaching students who have previously been unsuccessful may be a challenge. As Holly noted, there was a high variance of student attendance that was observed in this study between Bichronous experimental sections, and this is even between within different professors. As discussed above, it'd be unlikely that all students would ever be available in an accelerated online setting to meet once a week, but reviewing attendance records and then offering live sections based upon the dates that were high and times in which higher attendance was observed would probably be a good idea. A relatively low recording view rate was also observed in the study. We didn't have a chance to go over that, meaning that the vast majority of students that did not attend live learning did not go back and review the recording. It's suggested that non-attending students personally be notified via email when recordings are made available, along with a brief synopsis of the session, which may increase the recording view rate. Increasing the attendance rate, lowering the variance of attendance, and increasing the recording view rate would likely lead to more definitive, significant results regarding the effectiveness of Bichronous courses. When comparing the experimental sections with the control sections, our observed results were generally positive, though non-significant. So, for example, we observed slight but non-significant improvements with regards to identifiable student success metrics from control to experimental groups. One likely factor is that less than 1/4 of students in the Bichronous sections attended 3 or more live learning sessions, and since this research has identified these 3 live learning sessions as the gateway to statistical significance on the week 3 and 5 papers, increasing the number of students who attend 3 or more sessions would likely lead to improvements of Bichronous learning with Bichronous courses as a whole. Thus, previously discussed methodological improvements would likely lead to more significant comparative results between control and experimental sections. Within Bichronous courses, students who opted into the student survey were generally satisfied with the opportunities for live learning, and indeed saw these opportunities important to their success. As such, perhaps the most important part of this study was demonstrating how valuable it is for students to interact with their instructor in ways traditional online asynchronous approaches. The focus on student engagement within the online classroom is of paramount importance to regional accreditors in the U.S. Department of Ed, with the Department of Ed in particular developing standards for online education that call for regular and substantive interaction between faculty and students. Having faculty members at online institutions set aside one night a week to go over course assignments, concepts, and content, and different university resources is therefore a relatively low-cost approach to increasing RSI, even in accelerated courses. So, in conclusion, Bichronous learning is a learning environment that combines both asynchronous and synchronous elements, and that has led to increased student success metrics within online courses. The current study examined the effects of Bichronous learning in a general education history course for students in an accelerated general education history course at UAGC, and this research observed increased student success metrics within experimental Bichronous sections, as well as live learning sessions within the Bichronous sections. It's found that students that attended at least 3 live learning sessions within these experimental courses had statistically significant improvements on key assignments when compared to students who had not attended any sessions. In addition, statistically significant improvements for course GPA for students who had previously failed a course were observed, demonstrating the importance of this approach to struggling students. The challenge in implementing this research more effectively thus centers around identifications of students who struggled and communicating the importance of these sessions to students. Those that are not able to attend these sessions in person, which should be encouraged to view the recording so that they are not at a deficit in comparison to other students. Finally, it's observed that the students within the Bichronous sessions indicated strong favorability of and desire for these sessions. Incorporation of the instructor-led live learning sessions are also a route to providing students with higher of regular and substantive interaction, which is an issue of current interest to the Department of Ed, indicating their value without statistically significant improvement measures. So thank you to our faculty and our helpers at UAGC. And I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but if we do.
We actually at the limit now, so we don't have time for questions anymore, but there are questions in the chat. The questions are about how do you increase the participation in the live sessions? As you mentioned, not all students attend all this session, and that was also an experience that other faculty members had. And then also there's a question about engagement and what it means, also engagement with peers. And then there was one question also from Dr. Milligan on whether you compared your results with the GPA of students. And I believe you answered that in your presentation. You said that is a future research that you want to do. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can take the questions then online. So there you have 4 questions. I can copy them and send them to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And with that, I thank you, presenters, and everyone for attendance. Enjoy the rest of the conference. To future great sessions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.